Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to show off an update on my Palace of Versailles project. This update I think is one of the hardest aspects of the build that I've done so far. These are the Grand and Petite Écuries, which are the royal stables. You can see here in a plan, they were far away from the palace, across a large courtyard, and also they were built at angles, and it was building these buildings on angles that I found to be very difficult. Now, what I did was build one to start with, and I mirrored it over using a technique that I've used for years, where I just copy one block strips of the building at a time, expanding outward or inward, depending on how I'm building, to create a mirror image copy. Now, of course, when I do this, I can't really use stairs or certain other items within the game that require a specific orientation, but at least for walls, for using slabs, basic building, I'm able to make a mirror image copy without it taking quite as long as building a whole nother building. Now, the royal stables were built for the Palace of Versailles complex under Louis XIV. They actually replaced an earlier set of stables that are elsewhere in the city of Versailles that once the king saw, he said they were too small and he needed new ones. So they then became the Queen's stables. These two buildings, which are fairly similar to each other but not exactly identical, the larger one is actually the Petite Écurie, and the smaller one is the Grande Écurie. The Grande Écurie had the horses that were personally ridden by the king and by princes. It had some of the more high-end, some of the more expensive horses. Well, the Petite Écurie, the larger building, housed a lot of horses that were used for the royal coach and for other purposes like that. The buildings also housed carriages, uh, sleighs, different kinds of vehicles that would be used by the king and the royals. Now, at its height, over 2,000 horses could be held in the royal stables. I haven't quite figured out how that worked yet. Even looking at plans, I think that I built these buildings somewhat to scale, and when trying to put realistic sized horse stalls within the stables, I've only been able to fit about 200 horses. Now, actually, behind the Petite Écurie, there were a few other wings that were a little less, well, not as iconic looking as the two front buildings that also housed more horses. But supposedly inside, the stalls were a little bit tighter than the ones I've made. I don't know exactly what the standards were like for keeping royal horses in the 18th or 17th century, but so be it. Now, the other thing in copying over a mirror image of one of these buildings, I did have to go back later and adjust the rear wings that are down at the bottom of the screen here, because those are what differ the most between the two buildings in real life. I also had to go in later and add some trees. I made sure to use stair blocks to round out the mansard roofs, put in doors because I wasn't going to use too many doors when they would just be mirrored. But I did make sure to add some nice sidewalks and lamp posts. Checking out this update, and I hope that you come and see some more of the updates that I have for Versailles and some of my other builds that I've been working on. I'll make sure that I keep regular updates and also have downloads somewhat regularly updated for this project and others. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next one. Bye.